You thought the event was a bit of a 9 for you. How did you find it?
I think it was just a lovely experience to meet like-minded people who care about growth and business and having an impact. In terms of value given to Sage City, or that could possibly be there, I think there is potential to further engage with some people. But I think the issue with that event is that everyone's looking to sell, looking to make business, and not entirely to be sold to. Even if that means as speeding up their business, allowing them to become more efficient, more effective, they still don't want to be there to be sold to. They're not there to invest, they're there to be invested on.
I found 3 or 4 people who were genuinely interested in using it and like piecing it together with what they had or were building. So it was a bit of a mixed bag. And to be honest, the majority of people, it was just nice to chat to them. And one thing that I found quite good was, everyone was kind of willing to say, like, if you meet someone who's interested in what you're up to, then they'll like refer them to you. So I'd done a lot of that when I couldn't necessarily find someone who was directly interested,
What about you, Tom?
It's about a 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10, or 4 out of 10. Because
high standards.
Well, it was more like, I felt like the people I was talking to weren't working on revolutionary stuff. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing that came up for me. Another one was like, I feel like I wasn't quite in the energetic mood to like really engage and get the most out of the conversations I was having with people. And yeah, I also felt like today our exercise on like talking about what the blockchain is and our little 30-second elevator pitch worked all right for today. I was getting some good responses, some so-so responses, but most of it should be listening and hearing out what their problems are instead of drilling in like my thing. So anyway, 4 out of 10. Let's see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah. And, well, one thing to add quickly in there as well is it was actually quite good for market research, because one of the things I asked quite a lot of people was, what kind of problems are you facing within your business or industry? Just some interesting insights there into potentially avenues that we can go down and explore and utilize in the future. So yeah, for me, it was just a good event for like-minded people. So yeah, definitely recommend it. There was free alcohol, which was nice. So, yeah. For the record of the tape, we are currently stuck in the maze that is the Barbican. So, good English accent.
The Barbican. So, what startups that you met today stood out for you, Tom?
Nothing really. Like, there was a few kind of nice ideas that I felt were well intentioned, but there's nothing like that jumped out as being like, whoa, that's insane, that's crazy. So I mean, at the same time, like when I was talking to people, I didn't get a reaction from them where they would be like, whoa, what are you doing? That's crazy. Vice versa, I guess. The world is one big mirror.
For me, it was really interesting because, see, when we're up in Edinburgh, everyone feels like they got to do something like special. When I go to an event there's a lot of people where it's like, you meet them and you're like, wow, like that's a cool idea. Like, we met a guy last event, like last week, who was building skin thin like sensor suits for like sport and all kinds of stuff, and like that's just like, you wouldn't hear of something like that down here. I found a lot of the, not that they're bad businesses. At the end of the day, it's not necessarily about innovation for most startups. It's about making money. A lot of them had great, solid and well-tested business models, but yeah, for me, there wasn't anything innovative. There's a few people who sounded like they wanted to be innovative, and that's kind of why they were like interested in what I had to say, but yeah, bit of a mixed bag. Not the usual crowd.
So, Tom, do you feel that a lot of the businesses in currently startups and then many of the businesses that currently exist serve zero purpose to
That's a bit of a big question.
to humanity or society to advance it further. Do you feel like they're just cluttering and using up valuable resources, or what made you not think that many of these startups were the shit?
So a lot of what they were talking about was, in my mind, an iterative improvement. It was like a +1 or a +2 on top of what's already there. And there didn't seem to be much talk on the overall cause or larger vision. It seemed quite tame. I felt as though that tameness and that kind of I'm only doing a +1 or a +2 on top of what's already there will lead to an ecosystem that's not shooting for the stars. There needs to be fundamental shifts on how things are done. And there needs to be big, bolder visions going around people and the way they approach things.
So I want to actually retract my statement about no one being interesting, because your question there reminded me of actually a company I was like, oh, that's actually really impressive. So basically, they build hardware, not exactly a smartwatch for that kind of line, but these health trackers, and they can basically predict things like heart attacks or strokes 3 months before they happen within someone. That to me was not only like really utilizing data and analytics on a crazy level, but also like truly making like some kind of impact or like benefit within society and healthcare. So shout out to them. I forgot their names, but yeah, got them, and we talked a little bit with them about potentially storing data or securing it through the blockchain. So I don't think they're quite ready for an immediate like integration. Kind of had each other's backs, and I said I could introduce you to some of the kind of companies we've been hanging out with up in Edinburgh. So I don't know if I can name drop them, but yeah.
You talk about them not being ready for our technology. What criteria do you really look for to categorize or qualify someone as ready for our technology?
So for me, it can basically vary. There's two kind of elements. One is like they've not really fully figured out how the product will work commercially, and for them potentially adding in some kind of extra element, even if we can make it uncomplicate something, another element in most people's minds is instantly an additional complication. The second is, as a business model, they're not sure how it would feed in there because they've not figured that stuff out, which is fair enough. And with those guys that I talked about who I said weren't quite ready, for them it was, they were still figuring it out commercially. And if we were to apply the blockchain there to those guys, it wouldn't be an initial thing that they need to get in a minimal viable product. It would be something that enhances it later on and allows them to expand or reduce costs.
Coming out of that event, or coming into it, what expectations did you have? And coming out of it, what did you expect there more to be, or how did you expect things to go?
The people we were talking to are they're all kind of they're seed round companies, which is good, but then there wasn't many kind of Series A, Series B starting to get traction. That level of company wasn't really going about, at least the ones that I spoke to anyway. I felt like there should have been more like confident push for a bigger vision. Now, the way I approached tonight, I was not pushing for a big vision, so
you weren't pushing for the big vision of Sage City. Is that because of tiredness or energy?
Nah, that's the last 6 months.
Why is that?
So, the last 6 months has been about the event. When I go to those events, since March, so 6 months is not true, since March, so March, April, May, June. So let's call it 3 and a bit months. The big vision being zero cost living and decentralized governance and new economies. But all of that is only possible if we suss out the blockchain technology. and that's the phase we're in right now. So we'll have to sell that as vision or as an idea.
Do you feel that that's what you should sell, or are you feeling less energized by where we are now? Do you feel an impatience to get to that ultimate vision?
Yeah, to me, it's a temporary phase.
Yeah, so obviously, Sage City, we have a grander plan beyond what we're currently providing in the blockchain sphere. But in our essence, what we really care about is making people's lives better, taking care of some of the core needs they maybe have within their life or business. And in order for us to fully maximize that, we have to start with something, and we have to start somewhere with one of those needs that we can help fulfill with our ideas and technology. Obviously, for me, and one of the kind of passions I had starting this company up, and I think one that we've also kept pretty silent to the majority of people we meet because it is a bit out there, but yeah, as Tom said, zero cost living, basically taking care of people's needs so that they can worry about the big picture. Oh, no, worry's not a great term there. Focus on the big picture. One of the kind of concepts that influenced me a lot when we started this company was universal basic income. There's a bit of a stigma around that from what I see within politicians, even working class people are opposed to universal basic income because they think that everyone who lives on benefits or doesn't do anything with their life will continue to do nothing with their life. And that's maybe the beauty of a system in which everyone's needs are taken care of. Everyone's free to pursue what they actually want to pursue. There's a good chance that these people, 2 or 3 months down the line of this free living, they suddenly come to the realization, yeah, I'm not doing anything with my life. I have no concerns and I'm just wasting away. And that's when, passions and inspirations suddenly kind of take flight. Suddenly you have people who never in a million years thought they could be producing art for a living or thinking about going into space or something. Suddenly it opens up this opportunity for people to, reignite their passion and interest in life.
Yeah, through Sage City, for the first time, people can work on what's important to them. They're free to create and push the frontiers because they're visionaries, they are entrepreneurs, they're creatives, they're artists. So this company is here to begin that work and that process and make it a reality.
So you actually mentioned space in that anecdote, in that spiel. You mentioned space. Is this something you've been thinking about, or is this just something you've just come up with? Like, how could you see blockchain being used in space?
Well, obviously there's applications, but if I'm honest, I know for a fact I don't have the interest or the skills required to do space things. But what we're focused on is current people living or future generations. If they don't have to worry about life on Earth, they can start thinking about life outside of Earth, not to make it sound like it's like death or anything. But I quickly realized early, kind of mid to late teens, that if you can't do something revolutionary, then you need to provide a foundation for other people to do things that are revolutionary. We're nowhere near close finding, the meaning of life or light speed travel. But if people don't have to worry about paying bills or whatever, then maybe they can dedicate their whole lives to figuring that one out.
We're just giving the space and tools for the future to be built by others, not by us.
By doing that, by enabling them to do that, we are, in some form of another, revolutionizing the whole ecosystem. Do you have any more points to add to today's update?
No, not really. Anyone who's listening online or back home or wherever in the world, especially if they're kind of part of the online community, they're going to have listened to the kind of initial stages and went, oh, these guys they're on it. They're making their blockchain solutions and changing the world one step at a time. And then we've ended up in this huge kind of existential crisis almost of we should be living out in space and nothing has meaning outside of the games that we involve ourselves in. And that's true to an extent, but yeah, what I'd say is, we're not insane. We just have some grand plans that we know aren't going to happen in 2, 5, maybe even 10 years, but everything that I'm doing is like working towards, and no matter how I turn away from things or give up on something, like I always end up coming back to that kind of same sentiment. That's like, you need to do something with meaning,
100%. Thomas, do you have? If you don't, I'll close it here today. Or we can advance it later.
Be sagacious. Be sagacious.
That's all, folks. We have delivered this tiny update to you from the streets of London. It's been quite noisy. But anyone who guesses how many times Adam said, in this podcast will get 5,000 sage. There you go, guys.